Cozy Artsy Coffee Shop, which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. St. Page's writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
The new Line 3 tar sands crude oil pipeline threatens our water and climate.
It's the end of the tar sands party, and Enbridge wants to sell some oil. Tar sands is the dirtiest oil in the world, so they really put our Great Lakes water in peril. The environmental permitting for this process is a joke. The line was shoved down our throats, and that's wrong. And we're still fighting it, and it's brutal. They should do an environmental impact statement on this project.
Visit stopline3.org to take action.
What we want is a just transition.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lulia. Cloudy skies overnight and a low of 44. Then clouds give way to sun on Friday with a high of 54. Nightingale at 26th and Lyndale in Minneapolis is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood bar and restaurant. Now open daily from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. with their full menu available until midnight. Check them out today at nightingalempls.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanjahare, which means distant thunder. My colonized name is Robert Pilot, and we discuss Native issues and events here. And as you all know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 Hotline. Their number is 651-304-9986.
So today, Ogimaa, we got a big show here. We got Leah Lemm, and really excited to have her on. And then we haven't had Robert Lilligren on in 2 weeks. And as you know, so many things go so many fast and go over my head. I thought Robert was off this week, but he was off 2 weeks before that. So we have a jam-packed show now.
Yes, I'm really excited for that. We thought for a minute we weren't going to have Robert, and we were like, what were we going to do? And
you and I talk, I guess. That's right. But hey,
yeah.
But we can go on back to the show style here we have. And you talk about things in your news piece that normal people don't hear, or normally people don't hear. Normal people, too. I guess that was a slip of the tongue. Normally, these people, our listeners, don't hear the news that you're about to bring forth, and in a good way. So we really appreciate everything you do, and that's Before I start mispronouncing more words, let's get right to you. Ogimaa with the news.
Hi, Bujuanin, everybody. I'm Ogimaa Ganuikwe. I'm a member of the Red Lake Nation in northern Minnesota. And as always, I like to start out with some news and events for the Stop Line 3 movement here in Minnesota, because that's something that is local to us and incredibly important to us, because the Line 3 tar sands oil pipeline is really just generally not an awesome thing for the people of Minnesota. So tomorrow at 6 p.m., related to Stop Line 3 is going to be an event that Nancy Bolio shared on our show on Tuesday. It's called Why Treaties Matter, and Devery Fairbanks from the White Earth Nation is going to be presenting at that event. It's again tomorrow at 6 p.m. It's called Why Treaties Matter. It's brought to you by the Northwest Indian Community Development Center, and I do believe that it is online, or I'm looking to see if it's in person. It is in person in Bemidji, Minnesota. Excuse me. Sorry. I thought that one was online. Another in-person event that's happening tomorrow, Friday, October 29th at 3 p.m. is For the Future, a Stop Line 3 rally, which is going to be held at Concordia and Lexington Avenue in St. Paul. It's brought to you by Copal, Minnesota, MN350, and other groups who are looking to stop the Line 3 tar sands expansion in Minnesota. It's in coordination with Free the Future 1029 Day of Action, which is Free the Future is for a fossil-free future, where young people across the world are rising up to demand an immediate end to the funding of fossil fuel. So that is some pretty spectacular events you can look into. Another quick event that was shared to me, the Community Culinary Course Project of Fargo is having a free community meal. Everyone is welcome. It says solidarity, not charity. It's vegan friendly. It's October 30th from 12 to 2 p.m. in Island Park in Fargo, North Dakota, I guess, Fargo-Moorhead area. So that's another quick and awesome event that you can go to if you're not in the Twin Cities area of the state of Minnesota. Other news in Minnesota, there was a really big victory for the freedom of the press in Minnesota today. A judge has ruled that the Minnesota State Patrol cannot arrest, threaten to arrest or assault journalists who are just doing their jobs. That includes not targeting press with chemical agents like tear gas and seizing their equipment. The reason why this is so important is because the ACLU of Minnesota filed what's called the Goyette case on behalf of journalists who were assaulted by police while covering the George Floyd protests, and then again while covering Daunte Wright protests, and again as many journalists have been targeted or harassed by police officers in Minnesota working to stop the line, or working to cover those who are trying to stop the Line 3 project. So basically, this is amazing. I mean, technically, they already won a temporary order to stop attacks on journalists, but the new ruling is going to last longer and now bars these attacks, at least as long as the legal case is going on. So it's big news for those people in Minnesota who have been doing this work and who have been, frightened or harassed or scared to do their job because of police intimidation. Other news, I just wanted to touch base here on something that's not totally local. In the Southwest, there's going to be the Navajo Nation is having a council to talk about uranium mining. So what happens in the Navajo Nation is that the U.S. has approved uranium mining within the Navajo Nation. And on Wednesday, the Navajo Nation approved a decision to request a congressional hearing regarding the U.S.'s approval of the uranium mining. The council is going to request that the hearing be held within the nation, and the hearing will involve discussions of the long-term effects of uranium and remediation and reclamation efforts for within the nation. And this is coming from the Navajo Times. Uranium mining began in the Navajo Nation in 1944 and lasted until 1986. And during this time, many Dene people worked and lived closely to the mines and mills. But now on the Navajo Nation, there are over 500
abandoned uranium mines. And these mines have exposed many Dene water sources and homes with a high level of radiation. And this exposure to radiation has caused lung and bone cancers in many of the people in the Navajo Nation. I think it's really important to understand that we talk a lot about the Line 3 expansion here in Minnesota and Line 5 in Wisconsin and Michigan and DAPL and, pipelines, but uranium mining and other forms of mining and drilling are really hurting Native people all over the United States, all over Turtle Island. It's really, it breaks my heart that we're all fighting the same battles in different ways in different places around the country. It's a little bit disheartening, to say the least. But I wish the Navajo Nation the best of luck with that case. And I think it's especially profound that the council's requesting the hearing to be held within their nation, which is similar to what the White Earth Nation is doing with Manoomin versus the DNR. They're fighting on behalf of the wild rice. And I think that it's important to really honor ourselves as Native people in that sovereignty, that we have the right to ask for cases to be within our own nations. And then a little bit of good news here, and special thanks to Crash for sending this to me. Today 20 senators signed a letter to the Biden administration urging them to grant emergency protections for the gray wolf. The senators recognize that the gray wolf may not be able to withstand another 11 months of uninhibited slaughters while waiting for the fish and ruling from the Fish and Wildlife Services. You can take action and join these 20 senators. Miigwech to you senators who signed up to protect our relatives, the wolves. If you would like to sign up and take action, go to relistwolves.org. And Wendy, I know you're not on tonight, but I wanted to make sure to get that out there for you.
Awesome. Wow. As always, Pinigigi Ogimaa, we have a jam-packed show like we were talking about earlier with Leah Lemm, and I can't wait to have her on. I was on her show, her and her brother's show, and just had a great time. And of course, Robert Lilligren, who we have on Thursdays. And what a jam-packed show, and what a great way to start out Ogimaa. Ogimaa with the news, Pinigigi, for all you do and all the news that you bring us.
Miigwech, Robert, thank you for having me as usual.
Right on. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot, and we'll be right back with Leah Lemm. Got a lot to talk about, and, I don't know if she has her war paint on or what she was painting earlier, so, that happens to us, and we're domestic Indians, too, at times. So, hey, we'll be right back. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
Bijou, I am Oshawashko Gijig. I'm from Red Lake Nation, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
I love that. You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice.
You know, we get Ogimaa, we have like governors, senators, comedians, actors on the show, but we have Leah Lemm on today, and I'm more nervous than I am as if a politician's on, because she does what we do, but in a good way with her brother, and we're really excited to have her on today. And I know when I was on your show, Native Voices, with your brother, I had so much fun. And I just want to read this quick bio for you, of you. And you're a citizen of Mille Lake, Band of Ojibwe, live in Grand Rapids, along the Prairie River, close to the Mississippi. And you were born in the Twin Cities, and you're a mom, spouse, and a community story sharer. That's a great bio. And also, I want to say you're a musician too. And I know that me being a musician and a perfect pitch, I listen to some of your stuff and I just go, she's a musician. So welcome, Leah. That took half of your interview right there as the introduction, but welcome to Native Roots Radio. And let's talk here. Again, I'm really nervous, so Ogimaa might have to jump in and ask you questions or let you free throw, but or free fall. So I appreciate you stopping in. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I really want to get deep into the show that you co-host with your brother, because we never know who's listening. And Robert Lilligren was up north, and I don't know if you remember when we talked, Leah, but I talked about Robert Lilligren and what he had talked to me about, how we have to lift people up. Mm-hmm. And his sister heard his name, and we were talking back and forth about Robert Lilligren. So you just never know where or how or people are listening to us, right? Leah, welcome. I'm still talking.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you have that exactly right. You never know who's listening. But hopefully we're doing it, like you said, in a good way. And I think you're doing it in a good way too. Really focusing on those values, those cultural values that we each have. And I think if we start from that place, then the work follows suit in that good way. So even if you're talking about somebody and somebody's overhearing it, it's still okay, because you have those relationships and prioritizing relationships and prioritizing those good ways. I think it really shines through when we talk.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get into your show and talk about a little bit about your show and how people can listen to it, I want to know how you got your mom to help you paint.
Yeah. So you might be able to see, we live in a log home up in Grand Rapids, and it's really a really wonderful home, but it has its own quirks. And so our kitchen, we redid, at least somewhat. We refreshed it, let's say. And so in our house, it's hard to find like a straight line, because everything is so kind of, it's made along logs, right? So when we put in our new countertop, like everything had to be cut in a way that would be okay with the logs behind it. So anyway, we were refreshing our kitchen, and my mom is up visiting. She's actually making lasagna right now after a long day of painting. So she likes to paint. She kind of came up and took charge, as moms sometimes do. So she took charge, and everything is looking great. We're painting, and it's coming out wonderfully.
Well, when Wendy and I moved into our house, we do the show from our house, and she painted everything down here. And I think it was a trust thing. She didn't trust because we have cove ceilings. She didn't trust me to paint on the line correctly. So your mom and Wendy are probably similar in perfectionism, and I'm not good at painting in the lines. But hey, let's talk a little bit about your show.
Sure.
How long you've been doing it, and how can we listen to it?
Yeah, you can listen at minnesotanativenews.org, and that's mnnativenews.org. And we're right, a couple clicks in there, and you'll see Native Lights, where Indigenous voices shine. And we're also wherever you find your podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Just look for Native Lights, and Cole and I are the hosts. My brother, Cole Primo, and I get to talk to great guests every week. So we started the program, maybe 4 years ago now. It is like our flagship podcast with Minnesota Native News. So Minnesota Native News is a weekly newscast. It's .org, just so you know. It's a weekly newscast. And then so we took, we heard all these themes when talking with folks and thought, how about we make a podcast? Why not, right? And so it started out as a yearly podcast. So we did like three different, like a bunch of different interviews, and then made like a series, like a 6-episode series. And then when the pandemic started, we just realized we could talk to people every week over Zoom. And so we started talking to people every week, and then sending it to radio stations too. And plenty play it around the state as well. So in the Ampers network, it's a half-an-hour show now.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I'm really I'm proud to have been on it, because I'll talk to people and go, "Hey, I was just on Leah Lemm's show," and I'm going, "I've been on that show."
Yeah, we're always looking for people to chat with. So feel free to get in touch if you want to recommend somebody. Maybe somebody has a really inspiring story. Or what I find also great, because we focus on talking to Native folks from or living in Minnesota about their gifts and how they share their gifts with their communities, whether it's through their work, through art, through whatever, because, we tend to, in the wider culture, tend to like silo off things like, oh, this is my work, or this is my hobby, or this is whatever. But, what you do in your life, how your life, I guess, provides back those gifts with to your communities. So that's our main focus. And I think everybody has a story like that. So it's really fun to talk to somebody who doesn't necessarily know maybe what their gift is, or a non-obvious way of sharing with the communities, because we have so many great voices, the executive directors of organizations and stuff like that. But we also, talk with folks who aren't, who are living life a little more privately too. And those are really, really fun stories to share.
Well, being in recovery and also being a former high school teacher, everybody does have a story, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're all different. We have such a diverse population within our communities that you're going to find a different story for everybody.
Exactly. And I think everybody has that voyeur kind of thing, listening to that and to people speak their truth. And that's what we've been trying to do here for almost 4 years now, is be a conduit between the community and what people need to promote and talk about and bring forth to our allies, because we have we're in Chicago, we're in Madison, and the Twin Cities, of course, and then, of course, on Facebook. And we just get a lot of diverse people and supporters. So it's really good for us to tell stories that we already know that our allies can hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really true. I agree 100%. I get a lot of great feedback from folks being able to hear the voices of diverse Native folks from around Minnesota, because it's helpful. It's like everybody should have a seat at the table, because we can rethink the ways, re-examine how we think, and each and every voice matters.
Yeah, that's heavy. And what's fun about the show, and I don't know, we only have 2 minutes left, Ogimaa. I don't know if you have a question, but what's funny about this show in particular is when we had Heather Keeler on a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about adoption, and I'm an adoptee, and the show was very emotional, and we didn't even think that was what the show was going to be about. So it's awesome that people bring their truth in. And everyone's truth's different, and every tribe's different, and every language is different in the tribes, and those are things that I just want to say, when am I going to be on your show again? No, I meant you have no, just kidding. We got a minute 20. Let's talk about your show and how people can listen to it again before we let you go. And I know you want to get to that lasagna, and then we have Robert Lilligren.
It's tough when I can smell it in here, I wish I could share these good smells with you. But mnnativenews.org. And that's where you can find our newscasts, Minnesota Native News, and our podcast, Native Lights. And we also have pandemic coverage with a weekly health report and a monthly longer conversation about how Indian country is responding and adapting to the current pandemic. So we really have a lot of ways of sharing stories. mnnativenews.org.
Well, thank you, Pinigigi, so much for stopping in. Really, the last minute guest thing, and then I realized Robert Lilligren is in town, and he is going to be on the show. So that's great. Awesome. And thank you so much for being on the show. And we'll be right back. That was Leah Lemm. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi, my name is Frank Brown, owner of Minuteman Press Uptown. We're not just another print shop. We give back to the community and stand up for social justice. At Minuteman Press Uptown, we understand Black Lives Matter and know love is love. We're the only minority-owned and proud union print shop in the state. And while we take pride in our work with over 100 plus years of industry experience, we also know it's important to be involved in our community. We're active in the Twin Cities, fighting for racial, social, and economic justice. We believe our employees are vital to our success. That's why we pay a living wage with benefits.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. Minuteman Press's graphic design team took our ideas and turned them into an eye-catching promotional piece that was professional, and they far exceeded my expectations. And we sure love that they share our progressive values. They can help with direct mail, signs, promotion, and any other printing needs. Work with the graphic design and print team that AM 950 trusts, Minuteman Press Uptown. Call 612-870-0777 or visit mpuptown.com.
If the statistics say that 1 in 3 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, it means our whole community is affected by sexual violence. 1 is too many. Don't stand by, stand up. Don't engage in acts of sexual violence, and shut down the dirty jokes, the gossip, the victim blaming and shaming. As a community, we can change the way we respond. Contact the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition to attend a workshop to learn more. Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hi, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson, and I want you and all your friends to join my new show, The Santita Jackson Show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. Central on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota.
Hi, everyone. Matt McNeil here. The last year was hard for so many of us, and many small businesses struggled. That's why everyone at AM 950 is so grateful to the listeners who stepped up and helped support the radio station by becoming members of the station. Because of your listener support, we were able to continue to deliver the best and only progressive talk in the state on one of the few true progressive talk radio stations in the country. As we move into a better tomorrow, it's still important to help support small businesses like AM 950, and the membership is a great way to do it. We have memberships at any financial level, either a one-time donation or a recurring one, and we appreciate any support. We've already featured a lot of members-only bonus content, like the calendars, special member-only interviews, and even personalized messages, and we have more benefits coming soon. To become a member, go to am950radio.com, click on the Become a Member button, and sign up today. That's am950radio.com. Help support AM950 sponsors, support local small businesses, and become a member of AM950 Radio today at am950radio.com.
Ryan here with locally owned Snap Construction. Hey. Too much snapping. I have an important message. Roofing, siding, insulation, and window material rates have come down considerably. Production is up. Best of all, there's still time to lock in one of the many great city, state, and federal home fix-up loans with rates as low as 0%. Some cities are even offering no repayment until you sell or refi. We don't expect these programs to last much longer. Snap to it and set up your no-obligation inspection quote for your roofing, siding, windows, or insulation job today. Your Snap Construction remodel expert can lay out all the options for your roofing, siding, window, insulation project, along with all rebates, incentives, and federal, state, and city financing programs that you qualify for. Call Snap Construction today, home of the lifetime craftsmanship warranty. For over the last decade, we are arguably the most well-reviewed roofing, siding, window, insulation contractor in the Twin Cities. Don't take our word for it. Google us. Snapconstruction.com, 612-333-SNAP.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lulia. Cloudy skies overnight and a low of 44. Then clouds give way to sun on Friday with a high of 54. Nightingale at 26th and Lyndale in Minneapolis is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood bar and restaurant. Now open daily from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. with their full menu available until midnight. Check them out today at nightingalempls.com.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, we have Robert Lilligren on, and Robert Lilligren is the director of the Native American Community Development, NACDI, here in the Twin Cities, and we always like to touch base with Robert and what's going on nationally and locally, and he's a celebrity, so he hasn't been on the show a couple days. A big article in Time magazine about Franklin Avenue and all the great things that are happening there. We can kind of, but it was funny, Robert. I don't know, for some reason, I think you are on vacation. I'm on vacation. Wendy's on vacation. And then we haven't been, and then you said we haven't talked in 2 weeks, and it's just like crazy. Ogimaa is the only one that doesn't go on vacation.
I was going to say, when do I get to go on vacation?
Go on vacation, Ogimaa. You deserve it. You earned it.
I don't know if that counts.
I don't think it does. But hey, welcome, Robert, and great to see you. And it's funny, last time too we talked, you were outside and it was sunny out, and now it's rainy and cold. And we're on the Halloween 30-year anniversary of Halloween, where we got that 32 inches and what?
Oh yeah, Ogimaa, you're probably too young to remember that, but it was quite a storm.
I was alive, but I don't remember it.
Yeah.
I was about 2 at the time that happened, but I did get to see something really interesting. Apparently, like, the lost tapes were recovered, and NPR had an article where you could watch the videos of it. So that was really cool to see, because I never really have seen any footage, and it never dawned on me why. And I guess it turns out that the tapes were missing for quite some time.
Wow. And Robert, too, that was 30 years ago.
Right.
That the Twins played the Braves, who are still doing their chop and howling and all that. And that 4 days later, we had the storm. So it was like we won the World Series again, and it was like heck froze over.
It did. Yeah, maybe there is a connection there, Robert. I never really put those two together. I was just reading this morning some interesting commentary about the chop and everything, and the chant, and that the team itself claims, it's just a local thing. It doesn't impact people more broadly, and then sort of disproving that with the league is national, international. Right? The World Series is an international media event, right? And so that argument that it really affects just a really small geography and a small number of people is just bogus.
Right, definitely. And especially with the, and I really believe, and I think you can agree with me, Robert, but after the George Floyd murder, we had the Washington team change their name to the Washington football team. And then we also had the Cleveland baseball team change. Not only did the year before did they get rid of Chief Wahoo, but they got rid of the word Indians.
Yeah, they're the Guardians now.
Yeah, I wish they would have done their old name team from the 1890s was the Spiders. I think that would have been cooler.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. It's a little spooky, but
but I guess my point, Robert, was that we had this kind of progressive thing happening because of a lot of different things, and then all of a sudden, a year and a half later, we have the Braves and the CHOP again.
Right. That's a different conversation now, right, Robert? I mean, George Floyd's murder, George Floyd's death changed the conversation. We can't go back to how we used to talk about things. And I think more and more that we talk about these things, more people see that there's just a lot of injustice and racism in those kinds of names and gestures. And so I'm hopeful. I feel like we're in a different conversation than we were 2 years ago.
Yeah, I do too. But it kind of threw me off because I'm a big baseball fan. We used to have season tickets to the Twins, and I go, well, I really want to, watch the teams again and kind of get to know the people. And then during the players, and then during this playoff season, I'm just like, oh wow, this is happening again.
Right.
The Trop was disappointing. But so you've been gone for a couple weeks, and maybe you were, I don't know, can you tell us a little bit about what happened with the magazine article and
yeah, thanks. Yeah, it wasn't the Times, it was the New York Times, right? It wasn't Time magazine, it was their Ball Art supplement. But I got to tell you, they did a short but really well researched article on the organization I work for, NACDI, Native American Community Development Institute. And, we help steward the community's vision of the American Indian Cultural Corridor on East Franklin Avenue in South Minneapolis, just south of downtown. And we own and operate All My Relations Arts Gallery, and we use arts and culture as really core strategies for community development in Indian country. And the New York Times picked up on it, and they did a great article. Our gallery is tiny, but it's mighty, and it's really helped generate and launch careers that have become international. People like Deani Whitehawk is a former All My Relations arts director. Current director is Angela Two Stars, who just had a major piece open in the Minneapolis Sculpture Garden. The Walker Art Center is one of the premier white arts institutions, commissioned this piece after a big misstep they had a few years back with a sculpture called The Scaffold. And Angela's piece is beautiful. I don't know if you've had a chance to get there yet, Robert, but it's based on the image of dropping a stone in water and the concentric ripples that flow out. It's based on Dakota language, and it's very interactive. You want to step into it. There's a fountain in the middle, and it's really something.
Wow, that does sound something. And it's funny when I talk about Minneapolis too, and how culturally cool Minneapolis is. What I was telling when I first met Wendy before we got married years ago, because she was from New York, I said we have the most theaters per capita next to New York in the United States. And so I think with the support of these organizations, when they do it in a good way to amplify Native First Nation people, that really resonates.
Cool. Well, one of the things this short article does really well, and this reporter was no slough. She did her homework and everything, but she really connects other emerging artists and our initiatives to the story. So it references a muralist named Natchez Bolio that we've partnered with, and she's done a couple projects around the American Indian Cultural Corridor with youth artists. There's a youth development component there as well. Talked about Deani Whitehawk as well. And so these emerging artists, and our gallery assistant, Juliana Enright, who just opened a show at our gallery. We had already scheduled her show. She's part of a effort called the Emerging Curators Initiative here. So she was doing a show. We hired her as a gallery assistant. And so she opened the show. So they talk about her work. And I just feel like that's so NACDI. It's not just about our one spot or about one person. It's about this whole community capacity, this community involvement. It's a cool little article. I was really proud of it.
Yeah, and it just amplifies the great work that you and your group and the people before us that laid the foundation
That's
down.
it, exactly. Yep, it's building on the legacy, right, of our founders, our founding generation. Oh, and we got a photo too. So I think that's the first time I've ever had my picture in the New York Times.
Yeah, I saw you put that the jean jacket on, and you were looking all inked there with it. I was waiting for a headband or something, but yeah, it was
finding that balance. I was wearing beads, but you have to find that balance.
Robert, I'm loving that you're saying this is the first time that you got your picture in the New York Times, because you're like, this is going to happen again.
Well, it better. I know a friend of mine said, "Oh, congratulations on your New York Times debut." And I felt a little snobbish saying, "Well, it wasn't my debut. I have been in there before. It's my first photo." But then people like Angela Two Stars, in her photo and her work, and references for artists like Natchez Bolio and Juliana Enright. I mean, it's everyone benefits, right?
Absolutely. And I think what's really exciting is what we try to do here on Native Roots Radio, you've been doing for years, is to amplify the artist. And we just had Leah Lemm on, and we talk about art in different ways, like musicianship, video, film, all these things that really touch the whole spectrum of, I want to say the heart, because I feel like all of us that are involved as natives, it's really about the heart.
Agree. And about community, right?
Yeah.
Community. And it's great to work with so many incredibly talented young Native artists and professionals. It's refreshing. Gives me hope for the future.
I know, and it's weird too, because I feel like I always tell Ogimaa, and I tell my wife and my kids, I say, I'm 60 now, and I feel like I got 10 good years left, and we really have to push it and get ready for the handoff. And I think that's what your organization does.
Yep. And we're in the handoff, right? And we're always handing it off to the next generation. But I kind of feel the same way. I'm 61, so trying to figure out what does being an elder mean in this community, and what's the responsible way of handing it off.
Right. Well, and we've talked about this many, many, many times, either in private or on the show, but what it's taken me a long time in my life to figure out whatever and this is a AA thing that, I've been sober 37 years. You have to give it away to keep it. But also I've given away things and gotten things back tenfold. And that's even talks about money. I mean, if I've given it away to people that need it, all of a sudden I get a check for something. And I don't know if I didn't have the faith when I was younger or just the intelligence to do that, but it feels really good at this age.
Agree. And, as you learn more about yourself, you learn more about where you come from and cultures and things. And I feel like that's really one of the indigenous kind of values that I learned very young, within the family, was that giving, to give stuff. I remember I heard it put really succinctly once. I was listening to this young sister from the Pacific Northwest talk about food sovereignty, and she said the phrase, in white people judge wealth by how much you have, Native people judge by how much you give away. And that was just that click. It just clicked in my understanding. Yep, that's it.
Wow. Hey, do you have time for another quick segment?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for asking.
All right, we'll be right back. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support. Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN 350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN 350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
We are Alusa Nation.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Ooh.
I bet you missed those 2 weeks, Robert, huh?
I sure did. I could hear it in my dreams.
Oh, my God. Hey, we're with Robert Lilligren, director of the Native American Community Development Institute, NACDI, and we're just checking in. We talked a little bit about the article that he was in, and also about the Braves, and also maybe we can just touch base to our allies out there in Chicago and in the Twin Cities and Madison about costumes.
Oh yeah.
Culture is not your costume, right?
Right. 'Tis the season, right? I was reading a couple of things this morning about teachers in classrooms. There's a viral video. I don't know if you've seen it, Ogimaa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen the video. It sounded pretty horrifying. But then that just
pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
Been doing it for years.
Right.
Yeah, that's what was really like, nobody called her on this beforehand. But then again, where I live, the mascot here used to be the Warriors, and it was an Indian in a headdress. And they've since changed it to a different logo for the team, but they're still called the Warriors. And people every year still come up with the headdress and don't understand why it's a problem.
So it's good to see. I mean, I was seeing it in criticism in more mainstream kind of media and sites and stuff. So, it's kind of like we were talking about the mascots, right? The team mascots. It's like little by little, more and more people are sort of being brought under the bell.
Right. And I think having you on the show and doing this show is education, because we talk about a lot of things, but we're like the same age and how we grew up and how perception was. And I mean, I can go down because I'm a pack rat and have all these things from when I was in kindergarten, and I see a lot of inappropriate Native stuff that I made,
Right. Yeah. Same here. It's surprising. It's almost a little embarrassing, isn't it?
It's really embarrassing. I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah. I was in my elementary school, I was the only Native kid that I knew. I learned later that there were other Native people, but we were just all kind of in hiding, and so it was way more like tokenism, yeah. And he kind of played along with it in kind of an unpleasant way, but if we knew then what we know now, huh, Robert?
Exactly. And I think that's what's great about doing the show, or having Leah Lemm do her show, and those things, is that we're educating our allies, not only our own people, because there's people like myself that have just come back to the community that's still learning every day about things. And then there's our white community and BIPOC community that don't know anything about First Nation people or us.
Yeah, it's mostly non-Native people that'll say, "Oh, I was listening to Native Roots Radio, and I heard you talking about XYZ." I'm like, "Wow, okay." It kind of surprises me, but it's almost exclusively non-Native people, actually.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to Heather Keeler, and she had something going on. Excuse me. She had something going on way out in Bismarck, or she might have been in North Dakota too. And she was telling me the story that she had it was a fundraiser for somebody. And she said that somebody came up to her and said, "I've heard you on Native Roots Radio in Chicago." And she's like, "What?" So we always,
you're the celebrity, Robert. You're the celebrity.
I'm a legend in my own mind. I keep telling you that.
You are.
But it's great medicine, because we started out, not knowing what we're doing, but bringing in people like yourself that are locked into the community, and explaining what you're doing and how it involves the community, and what the community is. And it's just been great being a conduit all these years.
Right. Well, and I think that idea of really engaging with non-Native allies is an important one. This last year I was part of a work group that came together on truth and reconciliation in the city of Minneapolis, and sort of grappled with these questions of how do we do this in Minneapolis. And ultimately we're establishing a commission of truth and reconciliation, and just I think all of our recommendations were adopted by the city council and mayor and are being implemented, but it was made up exclusively of Native people and African American people, African descendants. And so, stolen land, stolen labor. And we really had to defend that makeup. Where are the other groups that suffer from institutional racism and things? And the idea was that if, these two, the original sins of this country, if these two groups can come together and sort of set a framework, then others will benefit. But we had these really authentic and intimate conversations about, what it's like to be Native, and others were talking about what it's like to be descended from slaves, and what we really learned is that these two groups needed to do that more. We needed to have those opportunities to share and talk about our trauma and talk about what's helped us to survive and to thrive, right? So I think your point is a huge one, Robert. It's really, and through these conversations, there's opportunities to engage with allies, learn about others, and teach about ourselves.
Well, I think it's important too to let and I thank you, Pini Gigi, for that. It's also important for us to amplify the facts. And one of the facts is we need to be in this conversation. We don't need to be the conversation, right?
Right. That is such a good point. And, with the work you do, Ogimaa's work, the work at NACDI and things, where you go into these kind of risky spaces, right? You go into the non-Native spaces, the white institutions that were meant to harm us, but you need to be engaging. Somebody needs to be engaging, right? And so stepping into that space is risky, and at NACDI, we always make sure we're not too far out in front of the community, Are we in the right space? Are we saying the right thing? Because if you get too far separated from the community and you're in those risky spaces, it can be really damaging individually or as an organization. So,
yeah. Well, we only got a couple minutes left, and I just really feel like this is like will be the best of show that we send out to other shows, because Leah just I told Leah too before we go, we got like 2 minutes left, that you had heard our interview up in the north, and we don't know who's listening, and
Right.
it's her show, and it's like you run into people that are listening to the show, and the capacity's picked up, and it's all because of great guests like you and her, and all the work Ogimaa does behind the scenes that I know you know about, but people have no idea how much full-time job this is for her, and to make this happen.
People down here know about your work, Ogimaa. They call you a superstar. Oh, that Ogimaa's a superstar.
I know. I got to give her a raise or something, because
But somebody else will. If you don't, somebody else will.
well, geez, I'd like to end with these thoughts after that. Peeny Geeky, Robert, for everything you do. That was Robert Lilligren of Native American Community Development Institute, Peeny Geeky. Hey, I would like to end with these thoughts. If you're listening to this show, you are part of the resistance. From Chief Plentycoops, the ground in which we stand on is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, and run for office. Peeny Geeky to Leah Lemm, Robert Lilligren, and of course Ogimaa for all the great work. We're still here. We are the seventh generation. And heck, I got 30 more seconds. You got anything, Robert?
Nothing super brilliant. I'm just watching the federal government and the reconciliation bill, and tracking that. But that's a whole other conversation.
That's next week. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and Peeny Geeky for listening. We are the seventh generation. Free Leonard Peltier. Mask up.
Vote.
If you've been holding on